Am I the a-hole because I didn't invite my father to my wedding because years ago he told me I was no longer a part of his family? I, 28 female, will be getting married next month and did not invite my father to the wedding. But now he's trying to get in touch. I feel like I need to explain the background. It all started when I was 6 years old, when my parents divorced after my dad cheated on my mom with my stepmother. After that, I mostly stayed with my mom. But during holidays and vacations, I would stay with my dad. When I was 8, my half-brother Jake, now 20 male, was born. Whenever I was with my dad, I was forced to take care of him. When I started high school, I had to move in with my dad because my mom had to move abroad for work. This was one of the hardest periods of my life. My stepmother wasn't a bad person. She tried to include me in things, but she was very submissive to my father. As for my dad, he always treated me like an outsider, someone who didn't really belong. I was constantly responsible for taking care of Jake, and whenever I took my stepmother and Jake out, I was never invited. One of the most painful experiences happened when I was 14. My dad announced that the whole family was going to Disney for a vacation, but the day before the trip, he told me he wanted it to be a family moment, their first big trip with Jake, so I was left home alone. This was a pattern. Whether it was trips to the beach, the zoo, or other outings, they always went without me. My dad didn't like me going out with friends or inviting them over, saying teenagers together only cause trouble. He was controlling, calling the house phone at random times to check if I was home, and even had a trusted neighbor to keep an eye on me to make sure I didn't have visitors. By the time I turned 16, the feeling of being an outsider had only gotten worse. Everything I had experienced during vacations, the exclusion, the abandonment, became part of my daily life. Things came to a head when I turned 18. My dad got a promotion and decided to take a family trip to Europe. Since it was my last year of high school, I thought I'd finally be included. But then he told me he didn't have enough money for a trip for 4, so it would just be for Jake's 10th birthday, and I had to stay home. That's when I snapped. I told him he was being unfair and shouldn't have given me false hope. I explained how it felt over the years, and he called me ungrateful and spoiled, saying I lived with him rent-free, which was a lie, since my mom sent money for my expenses and I did all the housework because both he and my stepmother worked late. The argument escalated and he kicked me out of the house, saying I was no longer a part of the family and not even his daughter. He literally threw me out and tossed my things onto the sidewalk. Thankfully, a friend lived nearby and I stayed at her place that night. The next day, I went back to see if my dad had calmed down, but I found my things still on the sidewalk, with some even in the trash. My stepmother had kindly saved a few items for me and handed them over. After that, my dad never reached out, except to call and yell at me a month later when my mom stopped sending him money for my expenses. A few months later, I got into an engineering program in another state, where I met my now fiancé, Mark, 29 male. He was a senior and we quickly connected, realizing we had a lot in common. We started dating, graduated, and now work in the same field, although at different companies. A few months ago, Mark proposed, and I happily said yes. I have social media but rarely use it. I've had Instagram for about 6 years and haven't even posted 10 pictures. I think a relative must have told my dad about the wedding because about a month after I accepted the proposal, he reached out through Instagram, saying he was excited to help with the wedding. I was surprised, both by the message and that he thought he'd be walking me down the aisle. I responded, telling him that my stepfather would be walking me down the aisle and that the wedding would be small, just for close family. After that, I blocked him. Inspired by stories I've read on Reddit, I expected calls, messages, and letters full of insults like ungrateful or spoiled. But instead, I received a letter delivered by Jake. Yes, we're still in contact. In the letter, my father expressed how sorry he was. I won't quote the exact words, but to summarize, he said that after kicking me out, he lived life as if normal with my stepmother and Jake. But when he saw pictures of my graduation with my mom and stepfather, he began to feel regret. He wanted to talk to me, but was too proud to reach out. Now he realizes that his pride got him nowhere, and he wants to fulfill one of the plans he made when I was born, to pay for my wedding and walk me down the aisle. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I've moved on with my life, and his attempt at redemption after all these years feels a bit too convenient. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to include my dad in my wedding despite his apology? Edit. My stepfather is amazing. He always goes out of his way to include me in everything, and my stepsisters are wonderful too. When he found out that my father didn't take me to Disney, he planned a trip for the next holiday and took me, my mother, and my stepsisters. This is one of 1,000 reasons why I want him to walk me down the aisle. For those asking why my mom and stepfather left me with my dad, my mom works as a programmer and accepted a job abroad to save money for college and a future. My stepfather is a researcher and was doing postdoctoral work at the time. My stepsister was the first person to talk to me after I was kicked out. She visited me 2 days later and even stayed for a few days. Though I was crying so much, I barely remember. I didn't move in with her because she lives in another state, and I was close to finishing my classes and final exams. My bridesmaid and her parents let me stay with them, helped me gather my things, and set up a guest room for me. Now for the top comments. Notice how he only wants to walk you down the aisle to fuel his own ego and fulfill a dream he came up with when you were born. He's not doing this out of the kindness of his own heart or out of genuine love and affection. Based on the responses, I realized that my father's letter feels more like an attempt at control. If I don't invite him to the wedding, he can play the victim, and I'll be seen as the bitter daughter. He'll come across as the devoted father who always dreamed of walking me down the aisle, while I'll be the daughter who can't forgive. If he wants to pull this story, ask him publicly where all the family photos of you are in Disneyland, Europe, etc. No doubt there's pictures, and he can't BS his way that he never took family photos. Family members will put 2 and 2 together if they're not dumb. That's exactly what he wants. He wants his public image of being a good dad on show even though he's a monster. Your sperm donor kicked you out 10 years ago. You owe him nothing. Weddings aren't a time to resolve an issue. Tell Jake that his father isn't your problem. It's your wedding. Sperm donor doesn't get an invite. I hope you have a beautiful wedding and an amazing married life. I loved the terms DNA donor and sperm donor. I really think I'm going to start calling him that. Mark is even joking that my DNA is 90% from my mom, so he can't be called a DNA donor. But yes, I'm looking for the best way to respond to Jake so he starts referring to my dad as the sperm donor. My personality tells me to respond politely, but Mark thinks I should be short and blunt. And thank you. I will plan to make the day as special as possible. It'll be a day just for me and Mark. Next story. I told my daughters that I was moving on with the separation anyway. I found out that my husband cheated on me when I was pregnant, both times. I only found out 3 months ago, and until then, we were a very happy family. My husband is a great dad. Our daughters, aged 14 and 16, know the reason we are getting a divorce, and that he had 2 affairs with 2 women, but they don't know all the details. They are opposed to the idea of divorce and have threatened to never see me again if I go through with it, because the affairs happened so long ago. I understand that they don't want change and fear their lives being disrupted. I know all of that, but I just can't be with him anymore. I can't even look at him. Nothing is working. Therapy is not helping, and they are adamant about never seeing me again. I haven't seen them in 2 months. We currently rent a small studio apartment, and we alternate living at the house with the girls. One of us lives in the house, while the other stays in the studio. The girls refuse to stay with me at the house during my weeks, but they stay in the studio with my husband. The therapist advised not to change the arrangement, even though I thought I should stay in the studio permanently to give them more space in the house. We bought our house in 2003, and its value has quadrupled. Because of this, we'll be able to afford 2 decent homes, even if they won't be as big and beautiful as this one. It's not like the girls will be living in bad conditions. Before all of this, they were close to both of us and loved us equally. Now, they only love him. Last week, they made it clear that if I file for divorce, they will never see me again. I told them I'm never going back to him, and they said I've made my choice, and they will never see me again. Not the a-hole. Teenagers are stubborn and they think they can force your hand. If you give in to this, you would be setting an example that it's okay to submit to abusive or unfaithful relationships if someone applies pressure. Not something girls should be learning as the norm. Tell them that in their lives, if they ever need to walk out to protect themselves, you will support them, and it's a shame they don't feel the same, but it won't change your intention to do the right thing. I'm worried about what he's saying to them when OP isn't around. When they get older, they'll get wiser and return to mom. Truth always comes out. I 100% agree. I used to think my mom was the best and didn't like my dad. But when we went to get our passports, my dad showed us a message where my mom told him that we had said we felt like he didn't love us anymore. Honestly, that was an eye-opener for me. We were just waiting in line. It wasn't even like we were inside complaining or anything. Later on, I read a divorce settlement. My dad had give my mom about 1.5 million South African rand for properties and other things. He also had to pay for the damage to her car. She had an accident with it. I think she drove it into a tree, while still paying the 1.5 million. On top of that, he has to pay 30K in child support. While I understand it, my mom has barely used any of that money on us. Maybe 2,000 ZAR for spending money, and we're 4 kids, and that's it. We hardly get new clothes. My younger sisters get more than me and my older brother. My dad even pays for new beddings 12 times a year, but we only get new beddings maybe once a year or once every 2 years. My parents divorced and my mom also cheated. Multiple times, actually. I remember sitting at the door waiting for her to come back. I was about 10. From 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. with baths and dinner in between. It took me 7 years to really come to my senses. I wish I could get that time back with my dad. Your daughters will realize what they threw away when all you wanted to do was love them and be there for them. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister I won't raise her child after she abandoned him? I, 21 female, am in college, work part-time, and barely keeping my life together as it is. My sister, 27 female, who has always been more free-spirited than responsible, recently left her 4-year-old son with our parents and disappeared. She quit her job, packed a bag, and went on a soul-searching trip, leaving no real explanation beyond a vague text saying she needed to find herself. Now, our parents are getting older and taking care of a toddler full-time is wearing them down. They've been hinting that I should step up and help more. This has slowly turned into outright suggestions that I should take him in full-time, essentially becoming his guardian. I love my nephew, but I am not in a position to be anyone's mother right now. I have my studies, a tight budget, and no space for a child in my life. I told my parents and sister that while I can babysit here and there, I won't take full responsibility for him. I reminded them that's her child, not mine. When my sister called, I finally confronted her. I told her she needed to figure out her situation and come back for her son. She got angry, accused me of abandoning the family and said I should step up, since I'm the only one who has her life together. My parents are also upset with me. They think I'm being selfish and that I need to grow up and take on more responsibility for the sake of the family. I feel guilty, but at the same time, it's not like I chose to have a child. Am I the a-hole for standing my ground and refusing to become a full-time parent to my nephew? Should I just sacrifice my current life to help my family? Now for the comment. She got angry, accused me of abandoning family. Oh, that's rich. You're the one who's abandoning family? Tell her to look in the mirror. Not the a-hole. I feel so bad for the children in these situations. Please tell her to get her tubes tied so that she doesn't have any more free spirit pregnancies. That's what I choked on too. Girl, I just needed to read the first paragraph. Absolutely not. Not the a-hole. Taking a responsibility your sister doesn't know how to handle will just push you back. Don't even think on doing that. Keep studying, keep working, and keep doing the best you can. I know the kid might struggle, but if you take care of him, it'll be just 2 people struggling and nobody's gonna be fine. Do the best for yourself. Ignore the rest. Sounds like she picked a winner for a baby daddy if she couldn't dump the kid on his family. Who are we kidding? Her parents are easier and they understand her need to be a free spirit and to find herself. His parents might have just told her to grow the heck up after all. I have a feeling that the sister may not even know who the father is honestly. Being a free spirit, she probably didn't have any exclusive relationships. I could be wrong, but that's the vibe I get from this. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister that her child isn't special and we don't have to plan every family gathering around him? I'm 27 and my sister is a few years older with a 2-year-old son. Ever since she had her child, everything in our family seems to revolve around him. I get that she's excited as a new mom and that her life has changed, but it's really starting to get on my nerves. Every single family gathering is planned solely around her child. If we're organizing a holiday, it has to fit his nap schedule. If we choose a location, it has to be kid-friendly. The food, it always has to include something safe for him, even if the rest of us would prefer something else. I can't even have normal conversations with my family anymore because they always end up turning into discussions about her kid, what he did, how he acted, how the doctor's appointment went, or what new word he learned. Every story my sister tells seems to conclude with the idea that her son is the most amazing, extraordinary child ever. I'm happy for her, but it feels like everyone else in the family has become background noise in her child-centered show. A few days ago, I suggested we all go out for dinner one evening at a restaurant so we could finally have some adult time. Just relax and talk, without constantly worrying about her son's needs. My sister immediately shut it down, saying it didn't fit with her son's schedule because his bedtime routine includes a bath, dinner, and then sleep. This wasn't the first time plans got rejected for that reason, but this time I decided to speak up. I told her that her child isn't the center of the universe, and that we don't need to plan every single family gathering around his schedule. I suggested that maybe she could come to just one event on her own and leave the child with her husband or a babysitter so we could enjoy some time, without any limitations. She flipped out. She said I was heartless, that I don't understand how hard it is to be a mother, and that I'm an ungrateful sibling who doesn't appreciate her sacrifices. She claimed I treat her child like a burden when, for her, he's the most important person in her life. Since then, we haven't spoken, and now my parents are saying I went too far and that I should apologize because being a parent is a huge responsibility, and my sister has every right to expect support. On one hand, I understand that her child is her priority, but on the other hand, I feel like this has gone too far, and that as a family, we shouldn't constantly have to give up our plans and enjoyment just because her kid has a schedule. Am I really the a-hole for wanting to occasionally have a normal family gathering without always catering to the needs of a toddler? Am I the a-hole? What you should have done is say, "Oh, so sorry you can't make it. We will miss you." And everyone else carried on with the plans. I agree every single plan should not be dependent on a baby's schedule. Not every single time. Great idea. Thanks a lot. Info: which members of your family are advocating for child-free events other than you? As someone who regularly wants child-free time, this is the real issue. Go out with your friends if you want to avoid your nephew. He is part of your family now and so will be at family gatherings.